central region.
Yeah.
Honestly, like talking about the weather is kind of linked to today's topic, neuroclima, right? Because we think that
Yes.
because there are trees, people say, "Oh, plant more trees. It will help us, fight climate change." But he's living literally inside trees,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
hottest place in France. So what's the story?
Absolutely. I heard, I'm not sure how true it is, but some fishes died in like a lake or something. I don't know how true it is. A lot of
I
AI
really
stuff out there now.
Like it feels like I'm beside boiling water. It feels like I'm in a sauna right now, and it's not even as hot as 40 degrees. So I'm just wondering what happens to the fishes that live inside this boiling water.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
else. You don't
I
have
can
to.
imagine. Okay, I would just start. I think we have quite a number. Thank you very much, Manuelis, Tispoina, Augusta, E. Lambert. Yes, and everyone who has joined so early. Just one sec. I just want to be sure that everyone has the link. Let me just share quickly again. Okay, yeah, everyone should have actually gotten. Hi, welcome, Pierre. So please let me know when you see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, right. Oopsie. One sec. Oh. Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Kemi, and I will here with my colleague Alex, who is together. We're going to be exploring how to actually design learning outcomes for effective climate engagement. So I don't know to what extent everyone in this room has had some experience designing climate change engagement initiatives, but if you have, at some point you've thought, or at least have confronted the challenge of trying to frame, okay, what will, participants of this, maybe it's a workshop or a game or an event or something, what will they get out of this? So that's pretty much the topic of what we're going to be diving deep in today and exploring. So before we go into that, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the Neuroclima projects. So the Neuroclima project is basically Horizon Neuro projects, which aims to kind of strengthen climate resilience by helping citizens, communities, educators, researchers, policymakers to better understand, respond, and participate in climate adaptation, climate adaptation challenges. And one of the key objectives of the project is to improve citizen participation and also support and improve climate literacy among citizens and communities related to climate change. So as you can see, the weather is really hot as we started with our discussion earlier. So how can we citizens be more involved in terms of participation, and how can citizens be more involved in terms of actions, sustainable actions to try to reduce the effects of climate change on our environment. And this is very much in line with the EU adaptation strategy. So that's one core aspect of Neuroclima and what we're trying to do. Today, we'll be diving deep into what aspects of the project and a tool designed within the project as well, which here we have the Neuroclima Engagement Canvas. I hear a buzz. Just want to be sure that everything is going fine.
Kemi, you want to share your deck?
Oh my gosh! I thought I was sharing my deck.
No. You probably want to share the deck. Thank you.
Oh my God! I'm so sorry,
no
guys.
No problem.
Just
there we go.
Off. Okay, yeah. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. I'm really sorry about that, guys. So today, I'll So today we'll be talking about one of the tools that we developed within the Neuroclima project called the Neuroclima. We'll be diving into one aspect of it, of the engagement canvas. So what is this engagement canvas that we're talking about here today? The engagement canvas is basically a collaborative design tool. So it's basically a tool that teams can use to kind of define the scope and really deliberate together and align on the scope of, maybe a climate education initiative or a workshop that they're designing. So it kind of highlights key aspects that you need to think about when designing climate education or climate literacy initiatives. So that's really what the engagement canvas does. But we're not going to go into all the aspects. Today, we're going to be zoning into learning objectives aspects as a key aspect of that you should think about when designing initiatives such sort. So going to the next. Can you still see my screen? Yes, great, you can. So, one sec, yeah. So now, think about, say, a climate-related workshop or an event or a game exhibition, an activity that you have participated in. What kind of made it memorable for you or impactful for you? To respond to the poll, it's just a quick poll that we're going to do together. Let me share. To respond to the poll, please go to menti.com and just use this code, and I will just share in real time the results of the poll from my end on my screen, so we know the results. If you have any issues accessing the poll, please let me know. Just give us like 2-3 minutes to respond. And I'll share my screen now so we can see the responses. Okay, so we are already having responses. They're coming in. I will share them now so we can have a quick discussion about them. Okay, it's also coming.
I think.
Yes.
Are you getting responses? Yeah.
Yes, excellent. So can you see the responses now? Yes. Oh no, this is the wrong. No, this is the wrong Mentimeter. I'm looking for the right one. No. I can't see the responses for this one. Why?
I can't submit.
You
I'm
can't.
getting a message that it's turned off. The
Oh.
responses are turned off.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, how about maybe maybe folks could just share?
You could just share. You could just share in the chat then if you. Anybody has any responses yet? I don't see.
I'll go if no one else goes.
Okay, great.
So earlier this year, we attended a Sustainable Development Goals leadership course, and we had some of the students from the University of Côte d'Azur who have an initiative where they made lots of different games to teach the participants about like insects and plants and stuff from the region. And it was interesting because we had some people from all over the world and a lot of people from America, and it was just kind of interesting to see like the general knowledge throughout kind of like the different generations, and that it's something that these days like people are more likely to look at their phones and to know a lot about brands but not about nature. So I thought it was a really great way to kind of like gamify like just knowing more about the natural world, right? Because after that activity, I'm sure that people went outside and kind of like looked around more. And it's like, oh yeah, I saw that thing like when we played the card game. So I thought that was really nice. Yeah.
Ah, nice. So it was
Mhm.
more for you, kind of the critical thinking and consciousness actually that you actually got from leaving the.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly. And the way it presented,
it's.
like the facilitators
Mhm,
got everyone to kind of like, part of the game was to
mhm,
match like the name with like the plant or the insect, and then
mhm,
they had to kind of like discuss like the relationship between like the plant and the insect.
mhm,
Is it
mhm,
a predator or
mhm,
is it a pest or whatever?
mhm, mhm.
So it was really nice for participants to be guided in that way, just
No.
to kind of think about
Mm,
like everyday things that we don't
mhm.
even look at.
Look
You
at.
know.
Mm,
But yeah,
mm. And
yeah,
notice the critical engagement actually with
exactly.
the
Yeah.
environment. Yeah. So basically, why I asked this question is so we actually are able to see learning outcomes in action in our daily lives, in our experiences. So typically, what you described now is a learning outcome from that event, and that's what really sticks with you at the end of an event when talking about learning outcomes. So I would just go straight to the. Thank you very much, Yvette, for sharing that experience. To be honest, it was really insightful. So basically, Yvette just described a learning outcome. So learning outcomes, they describe what participants get, what they are expected to be able to do as a result of an engagement experience. What do we expect them to do, at the end, or to be able to say, or at the end of an learning experience. So they help us kind of articulate the intended impact of an activity from the participant's perspective. So they ask, what should a participant gain from participating in a climate, maybe a simulation, a workshop, or a game, or the kind of activity Yvette attended. So that's the point of learning outcomes. Why do they matter? That's a question we should also ask. Why are they so important? They kind of link, not kind of, they really link, the goals of an activity to the evaluation, of that activity. That's how we evaluate that, yes, this activity was impactful. They link what we want to achieve to how will this thing that we want to be achieved, be assessed at the end of an activity. And if we bring it to the scope of climate change, they link, okay, what we want to learn about climate change and how we measure that it has been learned at the end of the activity. The link between both these two realms or aspects are the learning outcomes. So there are a number of ways, a number of frameworks that helps guide us on how to actually frame and formulate effective learning outcomes. But for this session, we'll be considering the 4 C's. And at this point, I'm going to invite Alex, who's an expert on the 4 C's framework, to share with us what the 4 C's are and how we can use it as an effective lens, for framing and formulating effective learning outcomes. So Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Kemi. Expert is really a loaded word, so you've set me up here. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Alex. I work alongside Kemi at IDL. And for the next kind of, I'd say for the next few minutes, I want to talk to you a little bit about the 4 C's, kind of what they are, why I think they're important, and then really we'll dive into kind of how we can integrate the 4 C's into climate-related learning objectives. Right. So, of course, we need to ground ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about what the 4 C's are, make sure that we agree upon that, which already could be a loaded gun depending on where your background is. But let's start here. So essentially, the 4 C's are really part of a larger group of transversal skills or competencies. That you may have heard them referred to as soft skills or perhaps 21st century skills by organizations like the OECD or UNESCO. But more recently, you've kind of seen them distilled down to these 4 C's, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. And it's because these particular transversal skills have a lot of relevancy across domains and contexts. Really though, if we're talking about transversal competencies and these 4 C's, we're really talking about human abilities that are becoming more, well, really increasingly valuable because of the way the economy is going, but also even in the face of challenges from technologies such as AI. So if we can jump to the next slide. Okay, but so one of the challenges though about when you're integrating the 4 C's into what we're doing today, which is kind of learning objectives or learning outcomes, but also even just into your learning, your lesson plans or your learning activities, is that they can be kind of somewhat complex in nature, right? They usually tap into multiple competencies, right, that are overlapping, and they're expressed. The expression of these transversal competencies are typically kind of context specific. So that presents challenges when you're trying to assess, right, these transversal competencies, and in particular the 4Cs. So what we typically do is we can lean on things such as key indicators. And key indicators are essentially really observable indicators that allow us to kind of see, is there evidence that this particular 4C, critical thinking, creativity, is actually taking place. And so, for instance, critical thinking, I think we can all, if we had to, come up with a definition in our own minds around what critical thinking is. But there's certainly no guarantee that your definition will match mine. And obviously, I think those definitions are open to change depending on the domain or context, right, that they're actually in reference to. So by using these observable indicators, we can then lean on these to be able to tell us, okay, are these transversal competencies, are these 4Cs actually being implemented or developed? And in this case, if we see a learner, right, who's analyzing, evaluating, perhaps synthesizing information, then we can essentially say, oh, critical thinking may possibly be operating here, or maybe we're in present here. Present, I guess, is the best word, right? Same thing with creativity. So if we see an individual who's being flexible in their understanding, perhaps taking risks, and perhaps applying an ideation process, then we can say perhaps creativity is in effect here. Right? There's no guarantee, of course, but these are essentially indicators that we can use to help lean on. Okay, so we got through that. All right, next. Okay, now when I talk about the 4Cs, I also like to insert this slide. It's not necessarily relevant to learning objectives per se, but perhaps it is. So when 21st century skills, like when that term was coined, and started to become, the idea of 21st century skills became more mainstream, there were questions around, okay, so what happens here? Do the 4Cs actually, are they more important than content knowledge? Is content knowledge actually not that important anymore? And really, I think if there's one of the maybe 2 or 3 things I'd like you to take away from today is the fact that that is absolutely not the case. The 4Cs do not replace content knowledge. Content knowledge does not replace the 4Cs. In fact, when they work together hand in hand to build a kind of more well-rounded learner. And so if you think about it this way, specific subject facts, those are content knowledge. For instance, if we are dealing with pi, that does not change. If we're learning about pi in math, or we're learning or using it in science, or for some reason we're writing about it in an English class, I don't know why, but you're writing about it in English class, pi does not change, right? That is a content knowledge. Transversal skills really they overlap the content knowledge, and they allow individuals to be able to apply that content knowledge in a variety of diverse contexts and domains, right? That's kind of really how I see them functioning. I ultimately, either way, both are really important when you're trying to address climate change, of course. And I'm going to admit this person real quick because I see them waiting here. Okay, can you go back actually real quick? All right. And so also what I like to do is I also included this graph on this graphic on the right-hand side here. It kind of shows some of the differences between content knowledge and transversal skills, but in no way does it say one is more important than the other. Really, they work together. So I just wanted to get that out there. Let's move to the next slide if we could. Okay, so let's get into actually doing integrating some 4Cs into our learning objectives. So here's the fun part. I actually went back. I taught for 12 years in a variety of different countries. I was a middle school science teacher. So I went back and I looked at some of the more recent learning objectives. Now these were taken from a particular country's middle school science curriculum. And these are very typical of what you would find for a chapter or a unit on climate change, let's say. Okay. And so what I want to do is just give you a second to just read through those real quick. You don't have to read them all, and you certainly don't have to memorize them. Just kind of read a few of them. And then what we're going to do is on the next slide, I'll introduce those same learning kind of outcomes, right, or goals, let's say, learning goals. But we'll show them with the 4Cs integrated. All right. All right, Kemi, let's jump to the next one, please. Okay, so now here's what I like to do. So I'd like to go ahead and read the integrated, the learning objective with the 4Cs integrated into it. And then maybe take a moment to ask our audience to share with me which of the 4Cs that they believe that I integrated into that learning objective. So we'll just play this quick game. You can type it in the chat, or you can just unmute, I guess, if Kemi will help me. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the first domain, I took 2 learning objectives, naming essentially the main greenhouse gases, along with labeling the layers of the atmosphere, and I turned it into one kind of 4C integrated learning objective. Students will be able to design an interactive visual model explaining how greenhouse gases trap heat within the Earth's atmospheric systems. So we all go back to we put our middle school hat on here, and we go back, and this is exactly what we were learning. So first of all, let's ask, which of the 4Cs do you think I may have, or do you believe that I integrated there? Anyone? It's okay. It's later in the day on a Friday. Whose bright idea was it to schedule this now? All right. Okay. All right. No problem. So first of all, let's say interactive. We have a visual model. You're designing. So in my mind, I think that involves some creativity. I would also say you're probably asking a learner to interpret what they read in a textbook, right? They've also probably looked at a picture within that textbook, and then they've had to interpret that and create their own visual model. So for me, I think that's also critical thinking. There's some critical thinking involved. And if, for instance, if we added and presented or work in a group, then we could also perhaps say that we had collaboration and communication as well. So, okay, great. Let's jump down to, we're not going to do all of them, but let's do the next one. No, hold on. Let's do the next one. So rather than listing some industries, right, that produce greenhouse gases, I changed it to this. Students will work in groups of 3 to identify 4 producers of greenhouse gases within their school and co-create a clean energy plan to address them. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in on maybe the 4C that, or the 4Cs that I've integrated here.
I would say collaboration.
Absolutely, right? We're working in groups of 3. Absolutely, I see that. Co-create, that's another, right? Great, thank you very much. Anybody else? Creativity, yeah, okay, how so, Zoe?
Of course.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lydia, pardon me, go ahead.
Yes, no, I was saying creativity, of course.
Yeah, very much so, right? Because here they're essentially co-creating, and sure, there's, because it's their own school, right? It's not like there's some plan that's probably already in place. So they're free to be able to use whatever resources they have, whatever existing knowledge they have, right, to be able to produce a solution. And because they're working in groups of 3, we're more apt to kind of really support the creativity, that creativity model, especially the co-creation piece, because they're working together. Thank you so much, Lydia.
And for sure, they need to use critical thinking to select, to pick what are the 4 producers of greenhouse gases that they will include.
Exactly, right? They first have to, we're asking them to do quite a bit there, right? Especially these are middle school students. So they have to identify, essentially the problem, right? What's producing these greenhouse gases? And then they have to kind of think about, okay, so what do I know about those greenhouse gases? And how do I offset them? I mean, that's a lot, right? Yeah, they're definitely thinking critically there. Yeah.
And if they are going to address them, that definitely implies communication. Like
Yes.
they need to work in a way to address these producers.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So they have to come to some conclusion, right? They have to say, okay, for, given our backgrounds, whatever our existing knowledge, we're going to work together. But we ultimately we do have to produce a solution, right, of some sort. So we have compromise that could occur there, we have collaboration, all those things, all those great things, right? So terrific. Thank you so much, Lydia. The other thing I want to call out here, guys, and this is something that the 4Cs do really well, I think, is that they're they can make the learning more impactful, right? We've already kind of, with the examples that that some of you have already given, but also I think it makes it more relevant. It really does make it more relevant, because here we're not asking them to talk about some industry that they have no idea about, right? They in a city they have no idea or never been to. We're asking them about their own school that has a direct impact on their lives, probably 5 days a week, 4 days a week if you're here in France, right? So this is another great use for the 4Cs. I don't know if you want to do one more. Maybe students will be able to identify which renewable energy sources are the most applicable to their city and present their findings as a presentation. So again, I think we see critical thinking here, we see collaboration, communication here. With the presentation piece, then they have to essentially say, okay, I have to think about what's the best way that I'm going to present my idea, my presentation, my project to the class, my audience. I have to evaluate the audience.
Yeah.
So again, this is so much deeper than the learning objectives that we started with, right?
Mm.
But they get to the same goal. We are not changing the outcome necessarily, right? A little bit, because they're creating something different, but what they're learning is essentially the same. We've been able to piggyback on that though, and further kind of develop their transversal skills, but also make that learning more impactful and really relevant. So, okay, well, I hope that was kind of enjoyable. We went through that quick, but thank you guys so much for your time, and thank you for coming today, but also looking forward to questions at the end. So Kemi, I'll toss it back to you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Alex, and for really making that really practical and easy to understand. So just piggybacking off the foundation Alex has actually said concerning the 4Cs. I just do a little practice here amongst ourselves. So we have this learning outcome here. Say participants will understand climate adaptation. It's just like an example. So how would you transform, this learning outcome into, how would you incorporate the 4Cs into it? You're going to reformulate it, through using the lens of the 4Cs based off of Alex and Alex's explanation so far. For you, if, for example, you're designing an initiative or an experience for your students, or maybe learners or participants of a workshop. So let's just try to give this a go in, like, say, 4 minutes tops. You can, let's try to see. We've been given participating a lot, so I expect that we can get this done in shorter time, I guess. You can just drop in the chat or unmute yourself and respond on how you will actually transform this learning outcome into something more relevant for learners and participants. Just feel free to unmute your mic, or if you want to leave it in the chat, you can at any time. You don't have to wait for the 4-minute mark. It's just a little practice to what we have learned so far. Let me check the chat. Ah, yeah, lots of chats here actually. Yes, okay.
I think one of the challenges here, Kemi, is that
Yes.
It's very broad.
Yes.
So climate adaptation. So we might want to pick an aspect of climate adaptation, and then we can maybe it'd be a little bit easier, like maybe
say for example, maybe we'll understand how to sort plastics, for example.
sure.
Participants will understand how to effectively sort plastics into recyclable or non-recyclable materials, or sort waste into recyclable or non-recyclable materials. Okay. So you can feel free to pick any specific aspect. I just made it really broad because, you know, everyone might have different knowledge areas regarding climate adaptation. So just feel free to break it down to something. And it could be something not related to this at all. Give it a go myself. Yes, definitely. Yes. Thank you, Lydia. So asking students to identify a climate menace for their own school and propose a solution working by groups. Exactly. Identify challenges and how to address them with concrete solutions. And at the end, present to the group to the group their solutions. Excellent, Lydia, actually, because here we can see critical thinking at play. Yes, please go ahead, Alex. You have a comment? You're muted.
No, not me. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, yes, excellent, Lydia. Thank you so much for this. This is exactly what the outcome we were expecting from this session. Just you basically captured the 4 C's in your response. So for everyone, Lydia is saying to ask students to identify a climate menace for their own school. Here we are actually having them to think critically, you know, around climate-related challenges within their immediate environments, which is also elevating the relevance of the activity for the students, and propose a solution working by groups, so we can see collaboration at play there. And we can also see them presenting as a group their solution. We can also see communication there, and also proposing a solution. They also have to think creatively as well to come up, co-create a solution and propose a solution. So thank you so much, Lydia, for your suggestion. So that was the idea. It was for us to just practice and what we have learned so far. So at this point, we're kind of winding down. So thank you so much. This was really it to help us see how the 4 C's can help elevate learning outcomes regarding climate education and climate literacy and climate engagement initiatives in how we design this. So at the end of this, as we are trying to wrap up this session, I just want to leave you with 3 key takeaways, which is first to start with thinking about the change you want your participants to experience, not the activity you want to run when you're designing climate education and literacy initiatives. It's easy to solution jump and say, oh, we want to do this and this and this, but just pause, try to resist the temptation and just pause a bit to think about, you know, the change you want to see before the activity. Write your learning outcomes and describe observable actions, and use the frameworks like the 4 C's to kind of strengthen and elevate those outcomes. So they support critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. So these are the key takeaways I'd really like for us to take from this session. And at this point, if you have any questions so far, you have any feedbacks for us, please, this is the time. Share with us. I would really love to hear from you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Augusta. Thank you, Sophia. Has this been useful? Is this insightful? Just like to hear. Yes, Yvette, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself, I think.
There we go. Thanks. Yeah, so very nice. I think it's very useful. I do have a question, like maybe for the future session.
Yes, please.
Because like today was pretty straightforward and nicely demonstrated. Thank you. So perhaps in the future, if we could do something on KPIs, because you know,
Okay.
like we live in a world where everyone
Yes.
wants to have like figures and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So like maybe something to kind of like help guide us towards setting up those like
Mhm.
measurable data points that
Okay.
people want and need, right?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah,
Thank you
especially
so
when
much.
it's about the environment and environmental education, you know, like I think it's useful to be able to kind of like justify it more because, you know, these days the environment's kind of like falling out of the conversation because AI is taking up all the space, right? Yeah.
Absolutely agree
Thank
with you.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation. Thank you. Thank you. We are thinking about future webinars of this sort, where we can go through other elements. And I think KPI setting is actually one of the elements as well within the Neuroclima Engagement Canvas that we consider it's quite important to think through when planning climate-related initiatives. So we would actually look into creating one specifically session dedicated to the KPI setting. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. For information on future webinars regarding relating to the Neuroclima project and other webinars, please, I'd like you to stay tuned and stay logged into the Neuroclima and IDL LinkedIn pages. You get updates on future webinars regarding the project. And I also wanted to also say, I just wanted to just also share this. So within the Neuroclima project, there are other tools that we have actually designed to support climate participation in climate change, climate adaptation, climate adaptation, and to support climate literacy and education. So we have a search engine called the Lens, a chatbot as well called the Bots, and a deliberation platform called Deliberate, and a learning platform called the Neuroclima Learn, and the playful set of playful models and a board game called Neuroclima Play, and lots of participatory tools and activities as well. So you can visit the Neuroclima Hub. I would put the link as well at the bottom. I think the link should be here somewhere. Neuroclima.eu. Yes, that's the website. Neuroclima.eu, and you can have access to this already made materials and give us feedback as well what you think about the amazing tools that have been created. Yeah, without not to take too much of your afternoon, Friday afternoon, just say thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for a successful webinar. Thank you. And I wish you a lovely weekend. And I hope this has been impactful for you. So do have a lovely weekend. Enjoy your rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Kemi.
everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Feel better.
Bye.
Did IDL leave? Oh, I see this point. It is. Hold on, we'll let everyone leave.
Yes, I'm waiting
Yeah.
actually.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.